The Silent Angel, the untold story of Park Jimin's secret kindness. There are two different kinds of light in this world. There is the blinding, artificial flash of a stadium spotlight, a light that burns hot, demands your attention, and forces the entire world to look directly at the center of the stage. And then there is another light. It is a quiet, soft, almost invisible glow. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't ask for applause. It sits quietly in the coldest, darkest corners of the room, slowly pushing away the shadows until someone who was once lost in the cold can finally breathe again. For over a decade, the entire world has watched Park Jimin under the first kind of light. We have seen him glide across stages in Paris, New York, Tokyo, and Seoul. We have seen him sing in front of tens of thousands of weeping fans, his face bathed in purple stadium beams. We have watched him shatter streaming records, grace the covers of global fashion magazines, and stand before the United Nations as an icon of a generation. When Park Jimin moves, the world writes headlines. When he speaks, millions listen. When he posts a single photo on social media, the internet stops moving. But today, we are not talking about Park Jimin, the global superstar. Today, on Infinity Borobudur, we are stepping away from the stadium lights. We are walking past the red carpets, past the sold-out arenas, and stepping into the quiet, invisible spaces where nobody thought to bring a camera. Because recently, something surfaced from the quiet depths of South Korea. No Instagram post announced it. No press release was distributed by an agency. No glossy magazine interview featured a quote about it. No camera crew was invited to capture a photo opportunity with an oversized novelty check. Park Jimin didn't tell anyone. And that is precisely why it has broken the hearts of millions of people around the globe. Gift in the shadows. Let us take a journey away from the glitz of the entertainment industry and travel to Jeonbuk, South Korea. It is a region filled with history, quiet streets, and everyday families working hard to build a future for their children. But like anywhere else in the world, beneath the surface of daily life, there are students who carry burdens far too heavy for their young shoulders. There are brilliant young minds who sit at desk lamps late into the night, dreaming of becoming doctors, artists, teachers, and scientists, but whose dreams are quietly suffocated by financial hardship. Students who worry about whether their families can afford next semester's tuition, or whether they will have to give up their education just to help pay the bills. In a world that moves so fast, these young people often feel invisible. They feel like the world is moving forward, leaving them behind in the dark. And then, without warning, a door opens. A sum of 100 million won, roughly $72,000, arrives at the educational foundation supporting underprivileged students in Jeonbuk. It is not a small sum. For an individual student carrying the weight of financial stress, that amount of money isn't just assistance. It is a lifeline. It is the difference between quitting and continuing. It is a promise that their dreams still matter. In the entertainment business, a sum like that is usually accompanied by a media campaign. It is used to polish a brand, to generate positive public relations, to craft an image of generosity that can be converted into social capital. If a talent agency wanted to, they could have scheduled a press conference. They could have snapped photos of the artist shaking hands with local officials. They could have trended the news worldwide within minutes, collecting millions of likes, retweets, and praising headlines. Instead, there was absolute silence. Park Jimin transferred the funds quietly. He signed no public declaration. He asked for no banner with his name on it. He simply handed over the gift, stepped back into the shadows, and went on with his life as if nothing had happened. The echo of gratitude. For weeks, the money sat there doing its sacred work, paying tuition, buying textbooks, lifting the crushing weight off the shoulders of young students and their struggling parents. Jimin was content to let the world believe he was just working on his music, preparing for his next project, or resting between schedules. He had no intention of ever bringing it up. So how do we know about it today? The news didn't break because a reporter uncovered a leak. Didn't break because an agency decided it was time for a publicity boost. The story surfaced for one reason, and one reason only, because the people whose lives were changed simply could not keep quiet any longer. The beneficiaries, the administrators, the teachers, and the students who received this lifeline, looked at the quiet generosity that had saved them. They realized that the man who had extended a hand into their darkest moment had asked for nothing in return. Not even a thank you. And their hearts overflowed. They felt that keeping such a selfless act hidden was an injustice to the beauty of the human spirit. They felt that the world needed to know what kind of heart beats inside the chest of Park Jimin. So they spoke out. They publicly expressed their deepest gratitude to a young man who had reached into their lives from afar and changed their destiny without ever asking for a spotlight. When the news finally broke, fans across the globe didn't react with shock. They didn't gasp in disbelief. Instead, a collective, tender sigh echoed through the entire ARMY community. Because armies know. They have known for a very long time. They looked at the news reports, wiping tears from their eyes, and whispered the same familiar title they have given him for years. Our charity angel has done it again. A pattern of unseen mercy. What makes this story touch the human soul so deeply is not just the amount of money given to the students of Jeonbuk. What moves people to tears is the realization that this was not an isolated act. This was not a one-time gesture made on a whim. If you look back through the years of Park Jimin's life, a breathtaking pattern begins to emerge, a pattern built entirely out of quiet, hidden mercy. Cast your mind back to the early days when BTS was just beginning to touch the heights of global fame. While most young men in their 20s were focused on enjoying the fruits of their hard work, Jimin was already looking back toward those who were suffering. Think of the elementary school in his hometown of Busan, Hodong Elementary School, the very place where a young Park Jimin once ran around the playground with dreams larger than the sky. When the school was forced to close its doors permanently due to declining enrollment, Jimin didn't just send a polite message of regret. He quietly stepped in. For 2 consecutive years, he personally covered the cost of school uniforms for every single graduating student transitioning to middle school. For those who grew up in modest neighborhoods, a new school uniform is not a minor expense. It is a significant financial hurdle for struggling parents. Jimin made sure those children walked into their new schools with their heads held high, wearing brand new clothes, feeling loved and valued. And he didn't stop there. He donated signed BTS albums to the graduating class, giving those children a piece of hope, a reminder that a boy from their exact same neighborhood had walked those exact same halls and grown up to touch the world. Remember his 100 million won donation to the Busan Metropolitan Office of Education. He didn't restrict it to a single fancy school or a high-profile project. He asked that the money be distributed across low-income schools throughout his entire hometown, ensuring that students from disadvantaged backgrounds could access books, meals, and educational resources. Remember his massive donation to the Jeonnam Future Education Foundation. Once again, 100 million won given quietly to support students in need of scholarships. Remember his contributions to the Green Umbrella Children's Foundation, a charity dedicated to protecting and nurturing vulnerable youth. Jimin's continuous quiet donations earned him a place in the prestigious Green Noble Club, a group for donors who have given over 100 million won. But even then, he never boasted about it. He never posted his certificate on social media. Remember his secret donation of 100 million won to the Rotary International District 3590 to aid polio patients. Polio is a disease that inflicts immense physical pain and paralysis on children, often in marginalized communities where medical care is scarce. Jimin quietly sent the funds to help pay for vaccines, physical therapy, and medical equipment. He didn't make a speech about health advocacy. He just paid for the medicine and walked away. And remember his emergency relief donation to UNICEF following the catastrophic earthquake that struck Turkey and Syria. 100 million won sent to provide clean water, warm blankets, and trauma support for children whose homes had been reduced to rubble in a matter of seconds. Over and over and over again. Different foundations. Different regions. Different causes. Children fighting crippling illnesses in hospital wards. Students sitting in cold classrooms wondering if they have a future. Families picking up the shattered pieces of their lives after natural disasters. Every single time, the pattern remains identical. No pre-announcement. No promotional campaign. No personal camera crew. Just a quiet bank transfer, a signed agreement of confidentiality, and a hope that the money arrives in time to save a life. The philosophy of true kindness. We live in a modern culture that is obsessed with visibility. We live in a world where every good deed is recorded on a smartphone, edited with dramatic music, and uploaded to social media within seconds. We live in an era where people often perform kindness not for the sake of the person in need, but for the applause of the audience watching through a screen. We have been conditioned to believe that if a good deed isn't documented, shared, and validated by thousands of likes, it somehow didn't happen. Generosity has, in many corners of society, become a currency traded for reputation. That is why Park Jimin's approach feels like a cool, refreshing rain on a parched desert. In a world where everyone is shouting, "Look at what I did!" Jimin whispers, "Please just take this and don't worry about who sent it." He helps first and lets the spotlight stay far away. This is not just random charity. This is a profound personal philosophy. It reveals an artist who understands the sacred dignity of the receiver. Jimin knows that when a person is in a position of vulnerability, when a student is struggling to pay for school or a parent is weeping over medical bills, receiving charity can sometimes feel overwhelming or humbling. By refusing to make his donations a public spectacle, Jimin protects the dignity of the people he helps. He doesn't want a child to feel like they are a prop in a celebrity's photo opportunity. He doesn't want a family to feel like their private pain is being used to build someone else's heroic image. He gives in a way that makes the receiver feel seen, cared for, and respected, while leaving the giver completely out of the equation. He lifts the burden, wipes away the tear, and steps out of the room before the person can even look up to see who saved them. The ancient philosopher Maimonides once wrote about the different levels of charity, stating that one of the highest forms of giving is when the giver does not know who receives, and the recipient does not know who gives, because then the gift is pure. It is untainted by ego, unburdened by pride, and free from the expectation of repayment. Park Jimin lives that ancient truth every single day. Forged in the fire of empathy. Where does a heart like this come from? How does a young boy from Busan grow up to become a global superstar whose immediate instinct upon reaching the pinnacle of wealth and fame is to quietly give it all back to those who are suffering? To understand Jimin's generosity, you have to look at the soul of Park Jimin himself. You have to look at the boy who trained until his knees trembled in the dance studios of Big Hit Entertainment. You have to look at the young man who slept only a few hours a night, pushing his body to the absolute limit of exhaustion because he was terrified of not being good enough. Jimin knows what it feels like to struggle. He knows what it feels like to stand in a cold room, uncertain of the future, wondering if your dreams are too big for a world that feels too small. He remembers the fear of being vulnerable. He remembers the weight of uncertainty. And instead of allowing his immense success to build a high wall between himself and the rest of humanity, Jimin used his success to build a bridge. He kept his heart soft. In an industry that often encourages artists to become cold, guarded, and self-absorbed, Jimin chose to remain tender. He feels the pain of others as if it were his own. When you watch him on stage, you see that empathy in his Tarion. Every fluid motion of his body is an expression of deep, emotional resonance. He doesn't just execute choreography. He feels every note, every lyric, every vibration of human emotion. That same sensitivity that makes him a transcendent artist on stage is the exact same sensitivity that makes him look at a struggling student in Gianbuk and say, "I cannot sit here with abundance while they are sitting in the dark." His artistry and his charity are not two separate things. They are two branches of the exact same tree, a tree rooted deeply in profound human empathy. The angel among us. There is a reason why armies call Park Jimin their angel. It is a word that gets used often in fan culture, sometimes lightly, sometimes casually. But with Jimin, the word carries a weight that is almost sacred. An angel is not someone who lives above the world in flawless perfection. An angel is someone who descends into the messiness, the pain, and the darkness of human life, carrying a light that helps others find their way through the storm. Jimin's kindness is not loud, but it is fierce. It is persistent. It is immovable. Think of the young girl sitting at her desk in Jeonbuk right now. She doesn't know Park Jimin personally. She has never met him. She will probably never sit across a room from him and hold his hand. A few months ago, she might have been staring at a stack of unpaid school bills, feeling the cold knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach, wondering if she would have to give up her dreams of going to university. She might have felt entirely alone in a vast and different world. And today? Today, her tuition is paid. Her books are on her desk. Her future is wide open. When she looks at her study materials late at night, she knows that somewhere out there in the world, a man who sits at the very top of the music industry, a man who could buy anything he wants, go anywhere he chooses, and focus entirely on himself, decided to care about her future. He didn't ask her to buy his album. He didn't ask her to stream his song. He didn't ask her to chant his name in a stadium. He simply paid for her education and wished her a beautiful life. Imagine the strength that gives a young heart. Imagine the hope that blooms inside a human soul when they realize that unconditional kindness truly exists in this world. That student will carry that gift for the rest of her life. And one day, when she graduates, when she achieves her dreams, when she stands on her own 2 feet, she too will reach out her hand to help someone else who is falling. 'Cause that is what true kindness does. Doesn't just solve a temporary problem. Creates a chain reaction of light that echoes across generations. The everlasting echo. As we stand here on Infinity Borobudur, reflecting on this story, we are reminded of why we love BTS. We didn't fall in love with these 7 men simply because they can sing high notes, dance complex choreography, or wear beautiful clothes. We fell in love with them because of who they are when the music stops. We fell in love with their character. We fell in love with their humility. We fell in love with the way they hold each other's hands through the dark, and the way they reach out their arms to hold the entire world. Park Jimin didn't want us to make this video. He didn't ask for this narration. If he had his way, this story would have remained forever hidden in the confidential archives of an educational foundation in Jeonbuk. He wanted no glory. He wanted no praise. But the world needs stories like this. In a world that often feels cold, divided, and overwhelmed by news of conflict and selfishness, Park Jimin reminds us of what it means to be truly human. He reminds us that power is meant to protect the weak, that wealth is meant to lift up the poor, that fame is meant to shine a light into the darkest places. And above all, he reminds us of a simple, eternal truth that we should all write upon our hearts. The most beautiful kindness is sometimes the kind that was never meant to be seen. To Park Jimin, our silent angel, our constant source of comfort, and the living embodiment of pure love, thank you. Thank you for showing us, day after day, year after year, that real strength is found in gentleness. Thank you for using your journey on this earth to bring warmth to those who are freezing, hope to those who are weary, and light to those who are lost. You didn't want the spotlight for your good deeds. But as long as Infinity Borobudur has a voice, we will make sure your light is never forgotten. To all the armies watching this around the world, let us take a piece of Jimin's heart with us today. Let us do something kind for someone else without expecting anything in return. Let us lend a hand, share a smile, or lift a burden quietly and without noise. 'Cause that is the greatest way we can honor Park Jimin. Not just by praising his kindness, but by becoming a little bit more like him every single day. Thank you for watching this story on Infinity Borobudur. Park Jimin's quiet generosity touched your heart today. Please leave a purple heart in the comments below. Share this video with someone who needs a reason to believe in goodness today. And subscribe to our channel for more deep, emotional stories about the men who changed our world. Until next time, stay warm, stay kind, and remember, Borahae. We purple you forever. Purple heart sparkles.